Hi, I'm Eric I'm currently working in Cairngorm Ski Patrol, but generally work as a mountain guide all over the world. We're thinking back to 26 years ago when I was out with Cairngorm Mountain Rescue Team, which I'm still involved in, and a really wild winter of 1986 where we had a number of rescues all joined together. It was just a manic period of probably about 10 days. The memories are getting a bit faded in some respects. And it was all a bit of a blur because we had consecutive rescues. We were involved on the A9 getting motorists out or getting stuck trying to get motorists out. We had a tragic incident of 3 students trying to get out from Corrienlochan over a number of days who failed to do so. And some of the most extreme weather on the Cairngorms that we've ever seen and ever encountered. And it was quite a frightening experience. We were on a particular rescue for 2 mountaineers who had been reported overdue, and the same number of days that they were out, a couple of Glenmore Lodge parties had exciting times and an instructor blown off a cornice way over the south side of the Loch Ann Basin, and he was reported missing also, so he's somewhere unknown. Another lodge party were avalanched in their snow hole, and one member of a group of 8 people managed to dig himself out, dig the rest of the team out. Fortunately, they were all okay, but rather bashed and bruised and scared by that experience. We were heading up into the Cairngorms to look for these particular 2 guys and left the car park in the dark. Didn't really notice anything untoward other than it was extremely windy and just normal Scottish winter conditions, cold, windy, couldn't see very much. We headed up on the plateau and it got increasingly wild, and I remember being on the plateau with my ice axe on the ground in a sort of ice axe braking position, fearing for my life as I was being blown towards the edge of Corriensnechta, and I thought I was just going to be lifted up and blown away. My rucksack was hovering above my back, and I thought, there's just nothing more I can do here. How am I going to move? How am I going to get off this hill? And that was us out as a rescue team. We carried on through the day. It's off now, I forgot. You want to go from the beginning?
No,
just from...
Aye.
We headed up in the morning, and it was one of those wild rescue days, but not really any different from normal. The weather was extreme, it was cold, it was windy, dark at the time we went through, and we didn't really notice anything untoward as we went up through the ski area. We headed out onto the hill, and I remember lying on the plateau above Corriensnechta with my ice axe in, my crampons dug into the ground, and feeling like I was being blown across the plateau and just about to be lifted up and blown off the edge of the corrie. It was one of the most frightening things I've ever experienced. And we eventually got into Corriedovan and got into a snow shelter, and we found one of our colleagues in the rescue team, along with one of the police dog handlers, who had the biggest German Shepherd you've ever seen, and he'd lost his dog. Rocky had vanished at some stage, so we were a bit concerned about that as well. There wasn't an awful lot we could do, but this time it was ballistically windy, so we kind of regrouped there, went as far as we could, and it was time to turn around, head back, try and make our way off the mountain. We eventually got back to the top station of Cairngorm. We're standing at the top chairlift station, sort of steeling ourselves to go out again, having a bit of a rest. Made our way down through the ski area, and as we got towards the bottom of the chairlift, the bottom chairlift station had no roof on it. It was there when we went up, it had gone completely on the way down, and later on that night we learnt that the anemometer on the top of the chairlift had read 161 before it had broken. So it was one of the windiest days ever recorded in the British Isles, as far as we know. Rocky was found a couple of days later, safe and well, on one of the steep faces in 40 Thieves area in Corriensnechta, and he'd been barking for at least 24 hours trying to attract somebody's attention, let them know he was still there. Obviously it was his handler that he was trying to tell, I'm here, come get me. But he'd been blown over the cornice and managed to stop himself on a snowy ledge, so quite a remarkable survival story for the search dog, let alone anybody else. We didn't find the 2 gentlemen that we were looking for, and eventually they were found later on in the winter as the snow melted a little bit, but with the help of information from a medium down in Derbyshire, which is another story which is pretty spooky. So the medium, as far as I remember, was an elderly lady in somewhere in Derbyshire, who had never been out of Derbyshire, certainly never been to the Cairngorms, and certainly didn't have an intimate knowledge of the topography of the Cairngorms. And one of the families approached the police and said, would it be okay if we go and speak to this lady? And they were, yeah, whatever you feel you need to do, if it's going to help you, then that's fine with us. I said, well, more importantly, will you act on the information? And they said, yeah, bring it back to us and we'll consult with the rescue team, we'll see what we can do. So off they went. And the description that the sergeant that was dealing with the incident got back was really graphic. And the family had kind of put together their ideas of where it might be in the Cairngorms. They brought it back to Aviemore, and the police sergeant that was involved went, you know what, I think I know exactly where they are. And this was just amazing news for the family, of course. And she described a ridge running down from left to right, a large expanse of water, but the key thing for us was she mentioned 3 trees. Now, you look around the Cairngorms, you don't see many trees. It's really windy up here. Trees don't really grow above 660 metres, and these guys were up on the plateau somewhere. So these 3 trees, and anybody that knows the Cairngorms will immediately be thinking probably about the 3 sole pine trees that sit on the moraine just below the path that goes across the Calamine Gap. And on a snowy day where there's snow on the ground, but it's been warm and the snow has fallen off the canopy of these old Cali pines, the little short hairs in the back of your neck stand straight up on end when you look at these 3 trees, if you've heard the story. Because the ridge is the vehicle of Snechter, which comes down from left to right if you're above Corrie Snechter, above the top edge of the goat track there. The expanse of water is Loch Morlich, and you can see these 3 solitary trees picked out in a snow day. And every time I walk out of the Corrie and see that, I think back to that occasion, and it's a very emotive time for us, I guess, but one of these spooky true stories. And the guys indeed were found lying in their bivvy bags, buried under the snow, sadly frozen, just in a position where they would be, looking straight into the ridge, but clearly with the powers of communication that were going on, that was the vista that was available in the far distance.